Do you know why they call us immortal? Because no one had the guts to keep shooting. CIC of the Drow race chuckled as he regaled his audience with tales of their dominion. Tall, armored, and exuding a sense of indomitable power, the Drow were the epitome of fear across the galaxy. Their skin, a dark iridescent hue, reflected the stars they had conquered, and their eyes, piercing red, were said to see into the very souls of lesser beings. The Drow were not just feared, they were revered and considered invincible. Their advanced technology, unparalleled strength, and regenerative abilities made them appear immortal. For centuries, they had dominated the galaxy, their reputation growing with each conquered world. Other races spoke of them in hushed tones, their names synonymous with death and destruction. Yet arrogance has a way of blinding even the most powerful. The first encounter with humans was almost dismissed as a minor skirmish. The Drow High Council received reports of a new race encroaching on the outer fringes of their territory. Humans they were called. Primitive, fragile, and insignificant. The council laughed, considering them barely worth the effort of annihilation. But protocol demanded a response, so they sent a small fleet, led by Kak himself, to crush these upstarts. The human fleet that awaited them was laughably small. Kak didn't even bother with a speech. He gave the order to fire, confident that this would be another swift and decisive victory. But the humans did not retreat. They fought with a tenacity and ferocity that caught the Drow High Council off guard. Their ships, though smaller and seemingly less advanced, moved with a precision that belied their primitive appearance. The humans had a strategy, and they executed it with ruthless efficiency. Kak watched as his ships were picked off one by one. "They fight like cornered beasts," he muttered, more intrigued than concerned. But the tide did not turn. The humans pressed their advantage, exploiting every weakness, every hesitation. For the first time in millennia, the Drow fleet was forced to retreat. The High Council was furious. Kak, humiliated and seeking redemption, demanded more resources for a second assault. This time, they would crush the humans with the full might of the Drow armada. The battle was brutal. The Drow threw everything they had at the humans, but the outcome was the same. The humans adapted quickly, learning from every encounter, and soon it was clear they were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to win. Kak's flagship, the Vengeance, was boarded during the final hours of the battle. The humans had developed weapons that could penetrate Drow armor and tactics that neutralized their regenerative abilities. Kak himself faced a human warrior in single combat, expecting an easy victory. The human, clad in battle-worn armor and armed with a weapon that hummed with energy, showed no fear. He moved with a speed and agility that matched Kak's own. Their clash was fierce, each strike a testament to their respective races' determination and skill. But the human fought with a purpose that Kak could not understand. "You think you are immortal," the human spat, parrying a blow and countering with a vicious strike that cut deep into Kak's flesh. "But immortality is just a myth. You bleed. You die just like the rest of us." Kak roared, more in frustration than pain. He could feel his strength waning, his regenerative abilities struggling to keep up. The human pressed his advantage, his strikes becoming more precise, more deadly. Kak's vision blurred, and for the first time in his life, he felt the cold grip of fear. With a final desperate lunge, Kak attempted to crush his opponent, but the human sidestepped, driving his blade deep into Kak's chest. The pain was excruciating, unlike anything Kak had ever felt. He fell to his knees, gasping as the human twisted the blade, ensuring the fatal blow. "Immortal," the human said, shaking his head. "No one is immortal." As darkness claimed him, Kak's last thought was not of anger or regret, but a grudging respect for these humans. They had done the impossible. They had proven that even the mightiest could fall. The news of Kak's death sent shockwaves through the Drow Empire. Their belief in their own invincibility was shattered. The humans, once considered insignificant, were now a force to be reckoned with. The High Council scrambled to respond, but the damage was done. The myth of drow immortality was broken. The war continued, but the balance of power had shifted. The humans fought with a determination that inspired fear, even in the hearts of the drow. Worlds that had once cowered before the drow now saw hope in the defiance of humanity. Alliances formed, rebellions sparked, and the galaxy, once united under the iron fist of the drow, began to fracture. But the drow were far from finished. In the hallowed halls of their most secretive council chamber, strategies were redrawn, and new leaders emerged. There was no longer room for arrogance. This was a battle for survival, and the drow would not go quietly into the night. Thrak, a younger but highly decorated warrior, stood before the council. His eyes blazed with a mix of fury and determination. "The humans have shown their strength," he said, his voice steady and resonant. "Now, we will show them the true might of the drow." The council nodded in agreement. Plans were set into motion for a new offensive, one that would not rely solely on brute strength, but on cunning strategy and the element of surprise. The drow would adapt just as the humans had. The war was far from over, and the galaxy braced for the next wave of conflict. Thrak stood on the bridge of the Shadow's Bane, his eyes fixed on the void of space where the next battle would unfold. He was a new breed of drow warrior, forged in the crucible of their recent humiliations. Unlike the older generation, who had grown complacent on the myth of their invincibility, Thrak knew the humans had to be taken seriously. He had studied their tactics, their technology, and most importantly, their spirit. "Status report," Thrak barked. "All systems are operational, and our fleet is in formation," replied his second-in-command, Krall. "The humans' forward base is just beyond the next asteroid belt." "Good," Thrak said. "Initiate Phase 1. Send the scouts ahead and begin the sensor jamming." The drow had always relied on brute force, but Thrak had learned from their enemies. This time, they would employ subterfuge and misdirection. The scouts, smaller and more agile ships, slipped through the asteroid belt, their movements masked by the interference generated by their jamming technology. The goal was to gather intelligence without alerting the humans to their presence. As Thrak waited for the reports to come in, he couldn't help but reflect on their recent losses. The humans had proven themselves formidable, but Thrak saw their victories as an opportunity. The humans' greatest strength was their adaptability, but that could also be turned into a weakness. They had grown accustomed to fighting a certain kind of war. Thrak planned to change the rules. "Scouts report back," Krall said, breaking Thrak's reverie. "The humans have a significant presence, but their defenses are concentrated on the main approach." "Just as we expected," Thrak replied with a grim smile. "Prepare the decoy ships. We'll draw their attention to the main route while we slip through the side passage." The decoy ships, designed to emit signals mimicking the larger warships, moved into position. They advanced along the most obvious route, deliberately making enough noise to fool the human sensors. Meanwhile, the main drow fleet, cloaked in silence, navigated the less defended side passage. Thrak watched the tactical display intently. The humans took the bait, redeploying their forces to counter the perceived threat. As the decoy ships engaged the human defenses, Thrak gave the order for the main fleet to advance. "Execute Phase 2, Thrak commanded. The Shadow's Bane and its accompanying ships surged forward, their weapons primed. The humans, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the real threat, scrambled to respond. Thrak's fleet tore through their outer defenses with ruthless efficiency, exploiting every weakness. The battle was intense, but Thrak maintained his focus, directing his forces with precision, constantly adapting to the shifting dynamics of the conflict. The humans fought bravely, but they were unprepared for the level of strategic depth Thrak brought to the table. In the midst of the chaos, Thrak received an urgent transmission. It was from one of their operatives embedded deep within human territory. The message was brief, but electrifying. Commander Thrak, we have obtained crucial intelligence. The humans are developing a new weapon, something they believe can turn the tide of the war. The plans are located at their main research facility on the planet Epsilon Prime. Thrak's mind raced. A new weapon? The implications were staggering. If the humans had indeed created something powerful enough to challenge the Drow, it could spell disaster. But if Thrak could obtain those plans, they could neutralize the threat before it materialized. Crawl, adjust our course, Thrak ordered. We're heading to Epsilon Prime. The fleet changed direction, leaving the skirmish behind. The humans, already reeling from the unexpected assault, were left to regroup and wonder at the sudden withdrawal. Thrak knew he was taking a risk by diverting their efforts, but he trusted his instincts. As they approached Epsilon Prime, Thrak briefed his team. This mission is critical. We need to infiltrate the research facility, obtain the weapon plans, and return without being detected. Failure is not an option. The Shadow's Bane entered orbit around Epsilon Prime under the cover of darkness. Thrak, Crawl, and a select group of elite soldiers descended to the surface in a stealth shuttle. The planet's atmosphere was thick with tension, its skies patrolled by human fighters. Thrak led his team through the dense forest surrounding the research facility. Their movements were silent and coordinated. They encountered minimal resistance thanks to the intelligence provided by their operative. As they reached the facility's perimeter, Thrak signaled for his team to halt. We move in quickly and quietly, Thrak instructed. Crawl, take the left flank. Gorak, you cover our rear. I'll lead the main assault. The team moved with military precision, bypassing security measures and neutralizing guards with swift, silent efficiency. Thrak's heart pounded with anticipation as they reached the central laboratory. Inside, a solitary human scientist worked feverishly, unaware of the intruders. Thrak approached the scientist, weapon drawn. Step away from the console, he commanded. The scientist froze, his eyes wide with fear. What do you want? The plans for your weapon, Thrak said coldly. Give them to me, and you might live to see another day. The scientist hesitated, then slowly reached for a data module. Thrak watched him carefully, ready to act at the slightest hint of betrayal. But the scientist handed over the module without resistance. Thank you for your cooperation, Thrak said, securing the module. Now Crawl, let's move. The team retraced their steps, avoiding detection, as they made their way back to the shuttle. As they ascended to the Shadow's Bane, Thrak allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had the plans. The Drow would not be caught off guard by this new human weapon. Back on the flagship, Thrak reviewed the data. The weapon was indeed formidable, a fusion of human ingenuity and technology salvaged from defeated Drow ships. It had the potential to turn the tide of the war. But with the plans in their possession, Thrak was confident they could devise a countermeasure. Prepare for our return to the fleet, Thrak ordered. We have much to discuss with the High Council. As the Shadow's Bane set course for Drow space, Thrak knew the war was far from over. The humans had proven themselves worthy adversaries, but the Drow were not defeated yet. They would adapt, they would evolve, and they would reclaim their place as the galaxy's supreme power. The conflict was only beginning, and Thrak was ready for whatever came next. Thrak stood before the High Council, the data module containing the human weapon plans securely in his grasp. The council chamber, a vast hall carved from the heart of a colossal asteroid, was filled with the most powerful Drow leaders. Their eyes glowed with curiosity and a hint of desperation. Honored Council, Thrak began, his voice echoing through the chamber. The humans have developed a weapon of considerable power, one that could alter the course of this war. But we now possess their plans and can devise a countermeasure. The council members murmured among themselves, their confidence visibly shaken by the recent setbacks. Finally, the head of the council, an ancient warrior named Zalak, spoke. You have done well, Thrak, he said. But possessing the plans is only the first step. How do you propose we neutralize this threat? Thrak straightened his resolve, unshakable. We will use their own weapon against them. By understanding its design, we can create a defense system that will render it useless. Additionally, we can exploit the human reliance on this weapon, drawing them into a trap where we will have the upper hand. The council deliberated, weighing Thrak's proposal. Zalek nodded slowly. Very well. You are authorized to proceed. But remember, Thrak, failure is not an option. The fate of the Drow rests in your hands. Thrak bowed deeply. I will not fail. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Drow scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, deciphering the human weapon schematics and developing countermeasures. Thrak oversaw every detail, his strategic mind anticipating every possible scenario. He knew the humans would not wait idly. They would continue to innovate, to adapt. But Thrak was determined to stay one step ahead. As the preparations neared completion, Thrak received word of a massive human fleet amassing near the border of Drow territory. The final battle was approaching. Thrak stood on the bridge of the Shadow's Bane, his resolve as unyielding as the stars around them. All systems are ready, Krall reported. The fleet is in position. Thrak nodded. Then let us show the humans the true strength of the Drow. Engage the fleet. The Shadow's Bane surged forward, leading the Drow armada into battle. The galaxy held its breath as the two greatest powers clashed once more, their destinies intertwined in a struggle that would shape the future of the cosmos. Victory or defeat, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same.